Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. The lake house sat nestled between thick pines, its reflection rippling on the glassy water below. It was the kind of place where the world slowed down, where mornings were spent with coffee on the dock and nights ended with the sound of crickets humming through the trees. It was peace, the kind most people spent their whole lives chasing. For me, it was a place to breathe. I pulled the truck into the gravel driveway, the tires crunching over loose stone. The porch light was on, glowing against the dark blue siding. Rebecca's car was already parked out front, next to Ava's. No surprise. They had driven up together earlier in the afternoon, eager to kick off the long weekend. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. I climbed out, stretching out the tension from the drive. The air smelled like pine needles and damp wood, crisp and clean in a way the city never could be. Inside, laughter floated from the back deck, light and familiar. I stepped through the sliding glass door and found them stretched out in Adirondack chairs, wine glasses in hand. "There he is," Rebecca called, lifting her glass in a mock toast. "We were starting to think you bailed." "Hit traffic," I said, setting my bag by the door. Ava smirked. "Must have been brutal. What was it, all of 2 cars?" I shook my head, giving her a look. She had always had that sharp humor, the kind that cut, but never quite drew blood. Rebecca leaned back in her chair, stretching out her legs. "You missed marshmallows. We already roasted the good ones." "I will live," I said, grabbing a beer from the cooler beside them. I twisted off the cap, took a long sip, and let my gaze drift toward the lake. The moon hung low over the water, casting silver light over the surface. The wind barely stirred the trees. This was what I looked forward to. The quiet, the stillness. Ava nudged Rebecca. "Tell him." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Not now." "Tell me what?" I asked, watching them. Rebecca sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. "Ava thinks we should rent the house out when we are not here." I took another sip of beer, waiting. "It makes sense," Ava chimed in. "The market for vacation rentals is huge right now. You could make a fortune off this place." I glanced around, taking in the wood beams, the stone fireplace, the deck overlooking the water. It was ours. The idea of strangers moving through it, treating it like a weekend rental, left a bad taste in my mouth. "No," Rebecca let out a breath. "You didn't even think about it." "I don't need to." She set her glass down a little harder than necessary. "It is not just your place, Kevin." I leveled my gaze at her. "It is a house, Rebecca, not a brand." Ava laughed under her breath. "Maybe it should be." Rebecca shot her a look, but did not argue. I ran a hand through my hair. "Why is this suddenly a conversation?" Rebecca shrugged. "I was just thinking. You work remote. I run my shop online. We could be anywhere. Might as well make some money when we are not here." Ava raised a brow. "It would look great on social. A whole lifestyle brand. Rustic, cozy, lakeside retreats. People eat that up." I exhaled through my nose. This was what I had been dealing with more and more lately. Rebecca's world was shifting, tilting towards something that revolved around curated images and engagement metrics. I was not built for that. "This place is not for them," I said finally. "It is for us." Rebecca did not respond right away. She took another sip of wine, staring out at the water. Ava was the one who broke the silence. "Just think about it. No harm in that." I did not answer, because I already knew. There was no way in hell I was handing over the keys to strangers. Rebecca and Ava kept talking, their voices dipping into quieter conversation, but my mind had already wandered. Something about this trip already felt different. I just did not know why yet. Rebecca had been slipping away in small, deliberate steps. It started with late nights, the kind that stretched longer than they used to. Before, she would spend the evenings curled up on the couch, laptop open, tinkering with her boutique's website while half watching some reality show. Now, she was always somewhere else. Meetings, networking events, dinners with new business partners. I try not to think much of it at first. She was ambitious, always looking for ways to grow her business. But ambition had never come with perfume lingering on her clothes or receipts for dinners at restaurants she used to say were too expensive. That part was new. She came home late again tonight. I was already in bed, the soft glow from my phone screen, the only light in the room. The lock clicked, and I heard her heels against the hardwood. A pause, the sound of fabric rustling as she shrugged off her coat. I waited. Rebecca stepped into the doorway, brushing hair from her face. "You were still awake." "Obviously." I set my phone down. "Where were you?" Her lips parted slightly, as if surprised by the question. "I told you. I had a meeting. At 10 at night?" She scoffed, walking toward the dresser. "You know how business is. Sometimes things run long." I sat up, watching her pull earrings from her lobes. "Who were you with?" She sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. "Why are you being weird about this?" I did not answer right away. Instead, I reached for my phone and pulled up a text thread I had seen earlier. Rebecca had left her screen unlocked on the counter before she left, and two names kept lighting it up. "Dylan." "Marco." I turned the phone toward her. "They seem to be messaging you a lot." Rebecca barely glanced at the screen. So, I said evenly, "Who are they?" She gave a dry laugh. "Are you really going through my messages now?" "They were on your screen." "Not exactly hidden." Her expression shifted, irritation creeping in. "They are business contacts, Kevin. I do not get why this is suddenly an issue." I leaned back, folding my arms. "Business contacts do not usually text after midnight." She scoffed again, shaking her head. "You are making something out of nothing." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe not." Rebecca let out a slow breath, as if steadying herself. "I do not have time for jealous accusations. I work hard, I network, I build relationships. That is what running a business looks like." I studied her, the way she squared her shoulders, the way she met my gaze just long enough to hold her ground, but not long enough to convince me. Something was off. She grabbed her phone from my hand and slipped it into her pocket. "This conversation is ridiculous." Then she turned and left the room. I listened as she made her way to the kitchen, the faint clink of a glass against the counter. She never used to drink this late. I lay back against the pillow, staring at the ceiling, the shadows stretching long against the walls. I let a lot of things slide before now. That would not happen again. Ava noticed it too. We sat on the dock the next morning, the water still, the sky soft with early light. Rebecca was inside, still sleeping off whatever excuse she had used to shut down last night's conversation. Ava sipped her coffee, legs stretched out in front of her. "She is hiding something." I did not react, just kept my gaze on the water. She tilted her head, watching me. "You see it too. Does not take a genius." She sighed, setting her mug down on the wooden planks. "I called her yesterday afternoon. Twice. She never picked up." "Ich glänzte her." "Did she call back?" "Texted. Said she was in a meeting." Ava exhaled, tapping her fingers against the dock. "But when I asked what kind, she laughed it off." "That sounded about right." "She ever mentioned Dylan or Marco to you?" I asked. Ava's brows lifted. "No. Should she have? Apparently they are business contacts." Ava snorted. "If that is true, then I am the Queen of England." She stretched, rolling out her shoulders. "I hate to say it, but you might need to start paying closer attention." I already had, and what I was seeing did not sit right. The tires rolled over the gravel as Ava pulled up to the lake house, her car kicking up a light cloud of dust. She had not planned on arriving this early, but something about Rebecca's behavior over the past few weeks had not sat right with her. The missed calls, the evasive answers, the way she had brushed off simple questions, it all felt off. Now, as she parked near the porch, that uneasy feeling settled deeper. Because someone else was already here. A sleek black sports car sat in the driveway, low and polished, standing out like a sore thumb against the rustic backdrop of the lake house. It was not Kevin's. It was not Rebecca's. Ava killed the engine, gripping the steering wheel for a long moment before stepping out. The house was quiet, but the front door was cracked open just slightly. She walked up the porch, her heartbeat steady, but her mind racing. Rebecca had said nothing about visitors this weekend. Ava pushed the door open with slow, careful movements, stepping inside, and stopped. There, in the dim light of the living room, Rebecca stood between two men. Dylan. Marco. Ava did not know their names yet, but she knew exactly what she was looking at. Rebecca's hands rested against Marco's chest, her mouth pressed against his while Dylan's fingers traced lazy circles down her back. For a second, Ava thought they had not noticed her. Then Rebecca pulled away sharply, her eyes going wide. Ava! Ava stepped back, her body moving before her mind could catch up. What the hell is this? Rebecca's lips parted, but no words came out. Dylan glanced over his shoulder, face unreadable. Marco ran a hand through his hair, looking mildly amused, like this was just another inconvenience. Ava turned on her heel, moving toward the door, but Rebecca lunged forward. Wait! Ava twisted away from her grip. You have got to be kidding me. Rebecca's voice came quick and desperate. It is not what it looks like. Ava let out a sharp breath, eyes flashing. That is the worst excuse I have ever heard. Rebecca shook her head, lowering her voice. Please, just listen. I do not need to listen. Ava's hands curled into fists. Kevin is my friend, too. Rebecca paled. You cannot tell him. Ava stared at her, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. Why not? Because it would ruin your little game? Rebecca stepped closer, her tone shifting. You do not understand. Ava let out a hollow laugh. You are right. I do not. The air in the room was thick, heavy with something Ava wanted no part of. She took another step back, turning toward the door. Rebecca's voice came again, sharp and pleading. Ava, please. But Ava was already gone. Outside, the air was crisp, but it did nothing to clear the disgust crawling up her spine. She reached her car, yanked the door open, and slid inside, gripping the wheel with both hands. She could not drive yet. Not until her thoughts stopped colliding. Kevin had to know. But how the hell was she supposed to tell him? Ava sat in her car, gripping the wheel with both hands, her mind running in circles. The weight of what she had seen inside the lake house pressed against her chest, suffocating in its intensity. She had never been one to panic, but this was different. This was betrayal in its purest form. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then set it back down. Telling Kevin meant tearing his world apart, but staying silent meant letting Rebecca get away with it. Ava closed her eyes, leaning her head against the headrest. She had known Rebecca for years, since college, through bad dates and career struggles, through her whirlwind romance with Kevin. And through it all, she had believed Rebecca was, at her core, a good person. Flawed, reckless, selfish at times, but not this. Not the kind of person who would sneak two men into the lake house, the very place she and Kevin had built together. Ava let out a slow breath and grabbed her phone before she could second-guess herself again. She scrolled to Kevin's name and hit the call button. The phone rang twice. Then his voice, steady, familiar. Ava. She swallowed hard, gripping the phone tighter. Hey, a pause. You all right? No, not even close. I need to talk to you, she said, voice lower than usual. It is important. Kevin hesitated on the other end. Where are you? She let out a slow breath. Still at the lake house. Silence. Then, wariness creeping into his tone. You got there early? Ava nodded, even though he could not see her. Yeah, and I was not the first one here. The pause stretched longer this time. Who else? Ava's fingers dug into the fabric of her jeans. Rebecca and two men. The silence that followed was deep, suffocating. When Kevin spoke again, his voice had changed. It was quieter, more controlled. Who? She licked her lips. Dylan and Marco. Another beat of silence. Then, with chilling calm, Kevin asked, And what exactly did you see? Ava's stomach twisted. I walked in on them, Kevin. I did not just see texts or overhear something suspicious. I walked through that door, and there they were. Kevin exhaled, the sound long and measured. Doing what? Ava pressed her fingers against her temple. Kissing. Hands all over each other. It was not some misunderstanding. His response was immediate. I believe you. Ava closed her eyes. I am so sorry. You did the right thing, Kevin said, voice level. Too level. Ava frowned. Kevin, I need you to tell me something, he cut in. When she saw you, did she try to explain? Ava let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, if you can call it is not what it looks like an explanation. Kevin let the words settle. She actually said that? First thing out of her mouth. A long pause. Then, Kevin said something that sent a chill down Ava's spine. She thinks she is smarter than me. Ava swallowed. Kevin, what are you going to do? He exhaled slowly, as if weighing every possibility. She is not walking away from this without consequences. Ava hesitated. Let me help. She expected him to refuse, to tell her to stay out of it, that this was between him and Rebecca. Instead, he said, all right. And just like that, Rebecca's reckoning had begun. I had never been a man who acted without thinking. Some people let emotions lead them, let anger dictate their next move. That was not me. Rebecca had made her choice. Now it was my turn. Ava met me at a quiet diner just outside of town the next afternoon. The place was nearly empty, save for a couple of locals nursing cups of coffee. We took a booth in the back, out of earshot, though neither of us spoke right away. Ava stirred her drink with slow, deliberate movements, her expression tight. She was still shaken. I could tell. I leaned forward. You sure you want to help with this? Her eyes snapped up to meet mine. After what I saw, I want to make sure she does not get away with it. I nodded. That was all I needed to hear. That evening, we drove up to the lake house, parking down the road where the trees gave enough cover to stay unseen. Ava adjusted the strap of her bag, glancing at me. You really think she is coming back tonight? She is comfortable here, I said. She thinks she has this place to herself. That means she will not be careful. Ava exhaled. Then let's make sure we are. I popped the trunk, revealing a small box of security cameras. Nothing fancy, motion-activated, discreet. I had picked them up earlier that day from a store in town, paying in cash. Ava picked one up, studying it. You really thought this through. I always do. She gave a small smirk, but there was something behind her eyes, something unreadable. We moved quickly, placing the cameras around the property. The porch, the back door, a few inside, one near the entryway, another in the hallway, one positioned in the living room. Every angle covered, every possible excuse Rebecca might try to make already dismantled. By the time we finished, the sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the water. Ava wiped her hands on her jeans. Now we wait. The wait did not take long. The first footage came 2 nights later. Rebecca arrived just after 10, stepping out a sleek car. Not hers. Dylan was with her. Ava and I sat in my apartment, watching the live feed from my laptop. The screen flickered as the motion sensors kicked in, capturing every detail in sharp, unforgiving clarity. Rebecca unlocked the door, glancing over her shoulder once before stepping inside. Dylan followed, his hand at the small of her back. Ava clenched her jaw. Unbelievable. I did not say anything, just watched. They were inside less than a minute before the hallway camera caught them. She was laughing, tilting her head as Dylan pulled her close. Then they disappeared into the bedroom. I closed the laptop. Ava sat back, arms crossed. Well, that was direct. I nodded once. And that is just night 1. The next footage came 3 days later. Different night. Different man. Marco this time. Ava let out a low whistle. She does not waste time, does she? I stared at the screen, my face giving nothing away. Rebecca moved through the house like she belonged there, like this was her personal retreat. Marco was right behind her, easy, relaxed, like he had done this before. Because he had. Ava shifted beside me. Kevin. I looked at her. She hesitated. Are you okay? I studied her for a long moment before answering. I will be. She nodded, like she understood something deeper than what was being said. We sat in silence, watching as Rebecca poured a drink, laughing at something Marco whispered in her ear. The final piece of evidence. The final betrayal. Now, it was time for her to pay. I had always believed in handling things the right way. Some men let emotions run wild, lashing out, breaking things, throwing punches. That was not me. I preferred precision. Rebecca thought she was untouchable. She thought she could keep juggling her little secrets, shifting between lies without ever facing the consequences. That was about to change. I leaned against my truck, phone in hand, typing out the message carefully. Kevin, I've been thinking a lot. Maybe I handle things wrong. I don't want us to keep fighting. Come to the lake house this Friday. Let's celebrate your boutique success. The message sent. I did not have to wait long. Rebecca, really? I was hoping we could talk. This means a lot, Kevin. Lies, smooth as ever. I already knew she had no intention of coming alone. Ava had checked Rebecca's social media activity, subtle hints, private messages to her so-called business partners. Dylan and Marco were both planning to show. She thought she was pulling the strings, arranging them like chess pieces on a board only she could see. But she had no idea that the game was already lost. Ava stretched out on my couch, scrolling through her phone. She bought it. I nodded. Hook, line, and sinker. She smirked. She really thinks she can juggle both of them under your nose? She does not think, I said. That is the problem. Ava let out a low laugh. Then let's make sure she sees clearly. She tossed her phone onto the table and sat up. All right, we need to make this count. What's the plan? I grabbed the laptop, opening the folder containing every piece of footage we had gathered. Every late-night visit. Every stolen touch. Every lie caught on camera. Rebecca had made this easy. I looked at Ava. We were going to let her reveal herself. She raised a brow. Ow! I smirked. By giving her the stage. Friday arrived, and everything was in place. I parked down the road, out of sight, and waited. The cameras were already set, streaming live to my phone. Ava was stationed in town, ready to step in when the time was right. Rebecca pulled up just after 7, stepping out of her car in a dress that looked like she had put extra thought into it. She smoothed her hair, checked her reflection in the side mirror, then smiled to herself. Not the look of a guilty woman, the look of someone who believed she had won. She walked up the porch steps, phone in hand, texting. A second later, another car rolled in behind hers. Dylan. Then, not even 5 minutes later, another vehicle. Marco. Both men had arrived, completely unaware of the other's presence. Rebecca greeted Dylan first, a coy smile, a teasing touch on his arm. Then, hearing the second car door slam, she turned, expression shifting instantly into another rehearsed smile as she walked toward Marco. For a moment, she hesitated, caught between them. Then, in an act so bold it almost amused me, she pulled out her phone and texted one of them, probably telling him to wait inside while she handled the other. I leaned back in my truck, watching everything unfold on my screen. Ava's voice came through my phone speaker. She's actually doing it. I smirked. Told you. Ava let out a sharp breath. Let's make this one hell of a night, then. I nodded, fingers tightening around the steering wheel. The trap was set, and Rebecca was walking straight into it. I sat in my truck just beyond the tree line, phone propped up on the dashboard, watching the live feed from the lake house. Every camera was active, each angle showing the carefully laid-out disaster that Rebecca had unknowingly walked straight into. She had arrived first, exactly as planned. On the screen, she stood in the kitchen, pouring herself a drink, glancing at her reflection in the window. She was composed, confident, oblivious. She thought she had the night under control, but she was already losing. Dylan arrived 10 minutes later. He parked beside her car, stepping out with the ease of someone who believed he was expected. He had the look of a man who thought he was about to be spoiled. A tailored shirt, cologne probably picked out just for tonight. Rebecca greeted him at the door, looping her arms around his neck. You made it. Dylan smirked. Would not miss it. She led him inside, laughing, pouring him a drink. I watched. Then came Marco. He pulled up exactly 12 minutes later, stepping out of his car with the same casual confidence, the same smug ease. He even checked his phone, probably reading a text from Rebecca, some excuse about why the timing had to be perfect. She did not realize she was seconds away from losing both of them. Marco knocked once and stepped inside, and in that exact moment, Rebecca made her first mistake. She was still standing close to Dylan, her hand resting lightly on his wrist, when she turned and saw Marco standing in the doorway. For the first time all night, her expression flickered. It was brief, half a second of hesitation, but I caught it. So did Dylan. Marco's smile slipped. What's going on? Rebecca recovered quickly, stepping forward with a laugh. Nothing. I was just... Dylan frowned. Who the hell is this? Marco's head tilted. I could ask the same thing. Rebecca held up her hands. Guys, relax. Dylan's jaw tightened. Relax. He looked at Rebecca, then at Marco. You invited both of us here? Marco crossed his arms. You said it was just going to be us. Rebecca let out a nervous chuckle. Look, this is not a big deal, Dylan scoffed. The hell it isn't. Marco turned toward the door. I do not have time for this. Rebecca's voice sharpened. And that was my cue. I stepped through the front door, calm, deliberate. 3 heads snapped toward me. Dylan blinked. What the? Rebecca turned pale. Kevin. I met her eyes, expression unreadable. Busy night. She swallowed, glancing at the 2 men still standing stiffly in the living room. This is not what it looks like. I smirked. I was hoping you would say that. I lifted my phone, tapping the screen. Behind me, the living room television flickered to life. And then, every lie she had told came crashing down. The first clip played, Rebecca unlocking the front door for Dylan just a few nights ago, pulling him inside with a flirtatious laugh. Then another, her meeting Marco, whispering something in his ear. Then a final clip, Rebecca pressed between both men, kissing one while gripping the other's hand. Live, in color, crystal clear. No excuses left. Dylan's face darkened. Are you serious? Marco clenched his jaw. You played both of us. Rebecca stepped forward. I can explain. Dylan shook his head. No, you cannot. Marco scoffed, looking her up and down. You are disgusting. Rebecca turned to me, voice frantic. Kevin, why would you do this? I let out a slow breath, tilting my head slightly. I figured you would appreciate the exposure. You always did love an audience. Marco stormed toward the door. I'm out. Dylan wasn't far behind. Same. Rebecca reached for him, but he shrugged her off. You are pathetic. Then they were gone. The front door slammed shut, and for the first time in a long time, it was just the 2 of us. Rebecca turned, her eyes wide. Kevin, I held up a hand. She stopped. I stared at her for a long moment, then spoke, my voice calm. Pack your things, Rebecca. Her lips parted. You do not mean that. I met her gaze. You have 1 hour. Then I turned, stepping onto the porch, leaving her alone in the ruins of what she had built. Rebecca had always been good at controlling a situation, twisting words, shifting blame, flashing a well-timed smile to smooth over any damage she had caused. But not this time. Not when the truth had been laid out in front of her, raw and undeniable. Not when every person she had played had turned their back on her. I stood on the porch, letting the night settle around me, the air still heavy with the aftermath of the disaster inside. The sound of her pacing reached me through the open doorway, frantic footsteps against hardwood. She was unraveling. Good. She had spent months building this web of lies, slipping in and out of lives like she was untouchable. Now, there was nothing left to hide behind. I stepped back inside, and the second she saw me, she rushed forward. Kevin, we need to talk. I held up a hand. There is nothing left to say. Her lips parted, searching for something, anything that would keep this from falling apart. I messed up, okay? I admit that. But we can fix this. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. You still think this is something you can fix? She reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, she whispered. There was a time when that word might have meant something. That time was gone. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and handed it to her. Read it. Rebecca frowned, hesitating before taking it. She unfolded the papers, scanning them quickly, her expression shifting from confusion to pure dread. She looked up. You are divorcing me? I nodded. That is correct. Her hands tightened around the pages. You did this already? Before tonight? Before you even realized you had lost? Her breath hitched. We can work through this. No, Rebecca. I am done. She blinked, then let out a shaky laugh, though there was no humor in it. You think you can just throw everything away? We built this life together. I exhaled slowly. No, Rebecca. I built it. You were too busy sneaking around to notice. She took a step back, shaking her head. You do not mean this. I nodded toward the papers still clenched in her hands. Edo. And if you're hoping for some kind of financial payout, let me save you the trouble. I took another sheet from my pocket, unfolding it with deliberate slowness. The lake house. It is mine. Bought before we got married. Your name is not on the deed. Her eyes widened. Everything else? I shrugged. You can keep your boutique. If there is anything left of it. She swallowed hard. What is that supposed to mean? Before I could answer, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway drew both of our attention. Ava. She stepped out, walking up the porch with a small folder tucked under her arm. Her expression was unreadable, but one thing was clear: she was not here to help Rebecca. She stopped beside me, not even glancing at the woman she once called a friend. "It is all here," Avis said, holding up the folder. "Receipts, text logs, screenshots. Every piece of evidence you could need if she tries to contest anything." Rebecca's face crumbled. Ava finally looked at her, but there was no warmth in her eyes. "Do not say my name." Rebecca took a shaky step forward. "You do not understand. I understand perfectly." Ava's voice was cold. "I saw you for exactly what you are." Silence. Then Rebecca's shoulders sagged. "I will lose everything." I held her gaze, voice steady. "That is not my problem." She let out a ragged breath, her hands shaking as they tightened around the divorce papers. I stepped past her, opening the front door. "Start packing." Rebecca did not move. Ava crossed her arms. "You heard him." For the first time since I had met her, Rebecca looked small. Her power, her charm, her control gone. She had nothing left. And that was exactly what she deserved. Rebecca sat on the couch, motionless, staring at the floor. The divorce papers were still clenched in her hands, wrinkled from how tightly she had been gripping them. Outside, the sun had set, leaving only the glow of the porch light filtering through the window. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. "Kevin, please." I didn't move. She lifted her gaze, eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "You don't have to do this." I exhaled slowly, keeping my voice steady. "I already did." She shook her head, scrambling for something, anything, that might buy her another chance. "I made mistakes, I know that. But I was lost, Kevin. I was struggling." Her voice wavered. I was afraid of losing myself. I tilted my head slightly, watching her. "You weren't afraid of losing yourself. You were afraid of getting caught." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I love you." I let that hang in the air for a long moment before answering. "No, you love control. You love attention. You love the game." She swallowed, gripping the papers tighter. "You really mean to just throw me away?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Rebecca, I'm not throwing you away. I'm letting you go." She sucked in a breath, but the fight had drained out of her. Deep down, she knew there was no saving this. She dropped her gaze. "What do I do now?" I didn't answer. That wasn't my concern anymore. The house was silent, except for the distant sound of the lake outside. Finally, Rebecca stood, moving slowly, like her body was too heavy to carry. Without another word, she walked down the hallway to the bedroom. I waited. The zipper of a suitcase. The quiet shuffling of clothes being packed. When she returned, she had one small bag in hand. She didn't look at me as she made her way to the door. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the handle, hesitating. Then, finally, she turned. "I never thought you would do this to me." I met her gaze, my voice calm. "That's why you thought you could get away with it." Rebecca's breath hitched, but she said nothing. Then, shoulders slumped, she opened the door and stepped into the night. The sound of her car starting was the last thing I heard before silence took over. Ava arrived half an hour later. She stepped inside without hesitation, scanning the room. "She's gone." I nodded. A slow exhale. "Good." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "You really did not want to see her." Ava let out a dry chuckle. "No, I didn't." She ran a hand through her hair, shaking her head. I don't think I could have handled another one of her excuses. I watched her for a moment before speaking. "You didn't have to do any of this, you know?" She met my gaze. "Yeah, I did." Something about the way she said it settled deep. We stood there, in the quiet aftermath of everything, the weight of the last few weeks finally lifting. Then, after a long moment, Ava smirked. "So what now?" I glanced toward the window, where the lake stretched out beneath the moonlight. "We start over." She studied me, as if deciding something, then gave a slow nod. "Sounds like a plan." We stepped outside together, the cool night air washing over us. Ava leaned against the porch railing, staring out at the water. For the first time in a long time, the lake house felt peaceful again. She turned her head slightly, watching me. "Do you think she'll be okay?" I thought about it, then shrugged. "Doesn't matter." Ava smiled a small, knowing look. "No, I guess it doesn't." We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the waves roll in. The past was done. The future was ours. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.